Good. Hopefully you guys are going to be able to hear me a bit better. We figured out how to get a mic running during the break. So we're going to just jump right into this. When I say the word Satanism, who here thinks of gay rights? We have a few people raising their hands. Now, who here thinks of human sacrifice? All right, a few more people raising your hands. Now, we're going to talk about how, to some degree, these are both valid interpretations. The first group we're going to be talking about today is the Satanic Temple. They were founded in the United States in 2013. This is a very nice statue of Baphomet they have in their Salem, Massachusetts headquarters. These are the liberal Satanists we're talking about. They are very big on gay rights, they're very big on abortion. They promote equality and science and all sorts of traditional liberal ideas. That appears from their website. A few examples of the Satanist flags you can buy. They're very forward about this part of their identity. The other group we're talking about is the Order of the Nine Angles. And these guys, this is some of their propaganda taken off of Telegram. These guys are basically cartoon villains. They are rapists, they are murderers, they glorify neo-Nazism. They began to glorify Saddam Hussein at the beginning of the invasion of Iraq. And they were very fond of Osama bin Laden for the 9/11 attacks. These guys are just baddies. But they're both Satanists. So, for the context of this discussion, we're not going to be talking about Satanism in the context of their practice or their cosmology, because unfortunately, there's really not much space for comparison here. The TST, the Satanic Temple, they describe themselves as non-theistic, notably not atheistic, while the Order of the Nine Angles very much practices spirituality and believes in an actual demonic aspect of Satanism, that is, spiritual demons. So we'll be comparing them in regards to liberalism and in regards to Christianity. So for the anti-Christian aspect of the TST, we can look at how they pose themselves. They call themselves opposers to the religious right. In the United States, this is the Protestant right wing, typically evangelical, Baptist as well, but they pose themselves against the religious right. However, in practice, they are against Christianity generally. We have two events here. The one on the left is a pink mass. This is baptizing the relative of the founder of the Westboro Baptist Church as a homosexual. They're doing this in a mockery of Mormon rites of baptism of the dead, that is. And the other one is the Black Mass. This one actually took place in Canada. This is a Satanic Temple mockery of the Catholic Mass. Notably, Mormons and Catholics are not liked by the religious right Protestants in the United States, which is why I think it's important to recognize that their dislike spread to Christianity generally and not just what they call the religious right. The Order of the Nine Angles, however, they pose themselves against the Judeo-Nazarene. The first part of that's really clear. They're Nazis, they don't like Jews. You don't need to think too hard about that. But the second part is a bit harder on a first glance. Can anyone here name a Jew from Nazareth? Oh?
Jesus Christ.
Yes, Jesus Christ. The Order of the Nine Angles opposes himself to Christianity and Judaism generally, and this is a very interesting part of them. They are white supremacists that oppose the modern West, and they oppose the West more broadly since the West became Christian, which is largely the entirety of the West. Their opposition to the West here is very complicated, but it's a very core part of their theology and their action. I mentioned that they're rapists and murderers. That's because Christianity says that those things are bad. And so in their opposition to Christianity, they say, oh, these guys I don't like say it's bad, must be good. So they go and do it. Now we're going to talk about how these groups relate to liberalism. The Satanic Temple is very clear about this. Their advocacy for abortion in the United States poses themselves with the American liberals, like the Democratic Party. But also, if you look at these are their 7 fundamental tenets. It's like their version of the 10 Commandments almost. If you look, it is very much informed by traditional Enlightenment ideas. They recognize this themselves in their work, the Satanic Temple versus the Church of Satan, which was a work they published detailing how they differentiate themselves from LaVey's Church of Satan. And a big part of this was that they are Enlightenment in a way that LaVey is not. The Order of the Nine Angles, however, is a bit more complicated. This is a bit of their propaganda, again, grabbed from Telegram. The one on the left is quite clearly Nazi. There's German army from the Second World War, and behind them is the Black Sun, which is a notable neo-Nazi symbol. But, as I mentioned, they pose themselves against Christianity and thus the West. It's a bit difficult to show that they also pose themselves against liberalism, except for one very important point, which is that they despise homosexuality, which is not an inversion of Christianity, because traditionally Christianity is also not accepting of homosexuality, which shows a very clear demonstration of their despise for liberalism. But here comes the question. If each of these groups are opposing Christianity, but one of them is liberal and one of them is not, how can they both be opposers? Doesn't the traditional logic of the enemy of my enemy is my friend come up? Now, I tried to make a chart. It took 3 or 4 tries to get right, and I'm not sure I've gotten it right here. But if you look, the Satanic Temple is just arguably less satanic than the Order of the Nine Angles is, in that it does less to reject Christianity in its action. The Satanic Temple still agreed that murder is bad. They'd think you shouldn't go around killing people, while the Order of the Nine Angles disagrees. And I think that this is at the core of my confusion here, to which I come to a suggestion. It is not really appropriate to call both of these groups satanic, because if I say satanic and I'm talking about abortion rights in the United States, and you're thinking about neo-Nazis, that doesn't really help anyone. That label isn't actually useful. Thus, I would suggest it would be best to rearrange the label to reflect their separation from Christianity, and thus the Order of the Nine Angles would be what I would call greater Satanist, and the Satanic Temple would be what I would call lesser Satanist. And that's coming to the question period. How are we on time? 2 minutes, okay.
5 minutes, 4 questions.
All right. Any questions?
I was wondering about like the greater,
Can you speak up a bit?
oh sorry, the greater Satanism part that you're talking about, the like illiberal part. What exactly are they like building towards? Like, what is their goal? What do they want the world to look like?
Oh, that's a very good question. I'm glad you asked that. Basically, the Order of the Nine Angles believes in the concept of eons, which, like, it's their way of structuring history. Their goal is the destruction of the current eon, and through that, what they want to do is they want to completely destroy Western society. And their hope is that through the destruction of Western society, the new space Aryan would arise, and then the space Aryan would come to colonize the galaxy, which is hard to say with a straight face because that's just insane. But ultimately, their goal is a complete destruction of the West, which is why they're very fond of Osama bin Laden. They actually have very strong interest in jihadism. They actually are quite interested in the idea of white jihad, that being white supremacist jihad, which is, they're fond of Islam for this reason, which is Islam isn't very fond of them. Like, yes.
Thank you so much. Could you tell us a bit about the different media strategies of these two groups? Because you did have some images, from what I could tell, of rituals from within the lesser Satanists, but less images
Sure.
of like, do the Order of the Nine Angles want to publicize their rituals? Are they a secret organization?
Oh, that's
You have the Telegram stuff, but just a little bit more about their media strategies.
right. The Order of the Nine Angles, they like to publicize their rituals. If you look, they
Look, I'm gonna let you do that for me. Thank you.
pardon?
I don't want to look. I'm glad
Yeah.
you're doing this.
Right.
research.
The they like, one of the things I mentioned with ISIS, they like to create montages of ISIS execution and share them around. They very much delight in violent pornography, basically. And I mean that in pornography of violence. Their rituals are very much something they like to publish. There's actually, I believe, an incident in Toronto where they murdered a man and mutilated his body and posted it online. The difference, though, that they are arguably a secret organization in that they don't have a centralized structure, and they suggest actually that their proponents take their text, take their work, re-edit them, redefine them, change how this Order of the Nine Angles looks, and then republish it back online, so that several different variations of the same text are running around, making it a bit harder to figure out what is and isn't proper O9A. Yes?
So, can we go back to your Venn diagram?
Okay.
Venn diagram?
Venn diagram, all right?
Yeah, thank you.
Here we go.
So, first of all, thank you for your presentation. By the way, I'm very entertained that the TST is the acronym here, because that's the name of the Toronto School of Theology, so I was confused throughout. Anyway, but I wanted to question this, and maybe this will be helpful for your analysis, because this Venn diagram seems to presume that Christianity is a stable category to which these other two groups are responding. And so I wanted to ask you, how would your research look differently if you analyze the Christianities that they're opposing? The Christianities that they're opposing in their rhetoric, do those Christianities bear any relationship to each other? Does that make any sense?
I'm having a very hard time.
Yeah, no, that's okay. So it seems to me that let me state it as a statement then, which is, it seems to me that the Christianity, the way that these two organizations, the way that they depict the Christianity that they're opposing are two Christianities that have actually very little relationship to one another. Right? So Christianity, it seems to me, is not a stable category in these movements. Is that correct? I mean, if you got them together, would they agree at what Christianity is?
You're asking what basis of Christianity I'm using for the concept?
Not for you, but for them.
For them.
So these two Satanist groups, it seems to me that Christianity means something very different to the two of them.
Right.
Yeah, and Christianity, I mean, you said you have these two groups. Satanism doesn't mean anything because you have these different groups. I mean, arguably the same for Christianity, right? Right? That Christians are very diverse.
I think that's a very interesting question, what exactly Christianity means to everyone involved. I think for the Order of the Nine Angles, for them, Christianity is degeneracy.
Right.
And when they think of Christian, they are talking, it doesn't really matter which Christians they're talking about, because if you talk about the conservative churches, the apostolic churches, they hate them for being Christian and Jewish. If you talk about the liberal churches, great. They're Christian and they're liberal? Wow, they really hate those guys. The Satanic Temple is a bit more complicated. This is, they are not very institutionally aware of the differences of Christianity. There's a paper I read which had a very wonderful anecdote about this. The Baphomet statue, going all the way back to this, was so big that they had to construct an annex on the headquarters to fit it in. And they hired an Amish man to do that. And they were giggling to themselves about how, ooh, we were tricking this guy into working for Satanists. But as the author of this article pointed out, the Amish viewed everyone outside of the Amish sphere as engaging in devilry and Satanism, in that they are living lives of sin. So really, they're not being tricked at all, and it's just the TST not really understanding Christianity, which then leads to these ideas within their own hierarchy. Yes?
And what is the relationship of like the TST to like Satan himself as like an icon, and also of like Order of Nine Angles to Satan himself, the devil?
Right. The TST's relation to Satan as an icon, they prefer to think about Satan in the context of, if I'm remembering the names Marlowe. Is it Marlowe?
Mr. Marlowe?
Yeah, it was like,
Paradise.
pardon?
Paradise Lost?
Yeah, Paradise Lost. Paradise Lost, they like to think about Satan in the context of Paradise Lost. They don't believe in a literal Satan. They are non-theistic. This is actually a very interesting part. If you go back to here on my Venn diagram, I'm equivocating the TST and liberalism, because notably there are members of the Satanic Temple who are Christians. They, at the same time, profess Satanism and Christianity, which I think is only really acceptable if you view Satanism of the TST to just be liberalism, at which point it's like, oh, we've all met a liberal Christian. It's not that weird to think about. And if you think about it in the same way, it's not that weird to meet a Satanist Christian. So in that, their view of Satan is largely as icon and nothing. They like images, they like ideas, they don't believe in an actual devil. There's a very famous Twitter tone of them talking about, oh, Christians are the ones who believe in an actual devil, not us. But the Order of the Nine Angles is a lot more complicated, and I don't actually have a full proper answer I can give you on that.
Unfortunately, we're kind of out of time now.
Right.
Thank you very much.